Dawnbringer, Book 1, Chapter 12, Secrets in the Deep. It is not long before the company of men is walking more or less single file, with the exception of Rorlain and Eldarien, for whom walking in such a way is impossible, through the woods to the northeast. The entrance to the barrow is not far, and as they walk, Eldarien cannot help remembering the last time he passed this way, fleeing for his life from the brigands who destroyed his village and slaughtered all those whom he loved. He asks shortly after leaving the confines of Falstead,
"Why are we going to the barrow of Serra-Galaptes?"
and receives a reply from Irilof in the usual haughty voice.
"Why would I tell you? You shall know when we get there."
And so they walk in silence as the morning sun rises higher among the trees to the east, and the deep shadows of early morning gradually lighten, revealing the shapes and textures of the foliage of the woods, wet with dew, a chiaroscuro of light and darkness in the interplay between sun and shadow under the thick canopy of trees. It seems obvious to Eldarien that his captors know the location of the barrow and need no assistance finding it. He takes advantage of the time and of the silence to reflect, grasping in his mind and memory for some sense of why they might be leading him here, or for a plan to escape, or even simply for a way to get Rorlain away. But he finds nothing. If only they would take him to Brughill, or even give him a fair trial in Ristfand, then he would hesitate little to go with them into custody and even jail. He had known the possibility of such an outcome, though he admits to himself now that he did not expect it. Indeed, he had thought it very unlikely. Has the Empire truly changed that much in the time since he departed from the shores of Telmerion, or has he been blind to its nature all along? It takes them only half an hour, at a slow pace, to come to the entrance to the barrow. They pass first by the sinkhole in which so many years ago Eldarien had unwittingly fallen, and not much further they come to the entrance to a cave yawning wide in a great cleft of rock, like an upside-down V formed by two immense slabs of stone. Indeed, as they near the entrance, the land rises all around them, rocky crags protruding from the earth, between which they must navigate. And here they find a narrow stream, a rough depression in the earth, with a couple inches of water trickling noisily over rocks, flowing from the cave's gaping mouth. Suddenly, as they come within 15 yards of the entrance, Eldarien remembers. His mind goes to the amulet that hangs now around his neck, and which he has worn, almost without exception, every day for close to 20 years. He's connected to this barrow for good or ill. But how could this be of importance to the men in whose custody he now finds himself, or to those whom they serve? What would the Emperor or his legate, or anyone else for that matter, want with the crypt of ancient men dead for 1,000 years? Did this have something to do with the Druidach, or was it another matter entirely? Finding that these thoughts only served to confuse him still more and to stir anxiety within him, Eldarien turns away from them and tries to focus on what is happening before him and around him. But the words of the inscription upon the amulet ring now in the ears of his mind. Achen Telmeria Yasuria. For Telmerion and her people. The company stops at the mouth of the cave, and Eldarien turns his head and looks for a moment at Rorlain, whose face betrays distraction. He seems also to be running through his mind, searching for a way of escape, but also determination. He has by no means surrendered to their fate. Their eyes lock for a moment, and Rorlain simply nods, as if in encouragement or to say something beyond words, though Eldarien is not sure exactly what he intends to communicate. Many of the armed guards sit among the large rocks strewn about the cave's entrance, but Ierendal turns and looks at his two prisoners, placing his hands on his hips. A few birds chatter away in the trees nearby, and their song mingles with the rhythm of the creek in which the men are nearly standing. There is a moment of expectation, a pause, as if everyone, including the captors, is drawing in a breath before a deep plunge into cold water or into unknown darkness.
I must thank you, for you have made your capture incredibly convenient for us.
Ierendal says at last, with laughter again in his voice.
Not only did you not notice us following your trail, which we did for many miles, but you slept without watch or guard. Indeed, and you came to the very doorstep, as it were, of where we wished for you to be. It saved us the trouble of dragging you all the way here in chains, only to dispose of you once our goal was achieved.
I stand defeated in the first two.
Eldarien whispers, looking straight into Ierendal's cruel eyes.
But I do not understand the meaning of the third.
I suppose you should not,
Replies the latter.
though if you were a bit less dull in mind, perhaps you could guess.
Lord Deputy,
One of the armed guards says, turning to Ierendal, interrupting their conversation.
is it your wish that we all enter the barrow of the ancient king?
Are you afraid?
No, sir. I only wonder if it would be good to set a watch.
What could possibly happen in such an abandoned place? We are in the middle of the wilderness.
Ierendal says,
But go ahead. Pick 2 guards to remain here while the rest of us enter.
When this is done, Ierendal gestures to Eldarien and Rorlain, waving his hand toward the darkness that awaits them between the slabs of stone.
After you.
They enter through the cave entrance and into the dark interior chamber within, which Eldarien has seen in the past, and which, as he looks around, remains as he remembered it. Through shafts in the high ceiling overhead, rays of light filter into the chamber, golden white against the walls and floor of dark stone. Thick vines grow among the rock, and to the left side of the room, the stream gurgles from what appears to be a narrow crack, like a wound or scar in the very flesh of the mountain, from which its blood has not ceased for many years to flow. At the back of the chamber, perhaps 30 yards from the entrance, are the doors to the barrow, sealed, as far as anyone knows, for a millennium. They are designed as a majestic archway of cold stone, with a great tree etched upon the doors and a depiction of rays of light streaming forth from the center. The trunk of the tree, at the seam where the 2 doors meet, shining to the very edges of the doors, both their hinges and where they meet the top of the arch and the floor. Along the arch, which encompasses the doors from floor to keystone to floor, is runic writing, ancient but legible. Indeed, the entire design looks to have hardly aged at all. It seems that this barrow, in its entirety, Eldarien remembers the candles and the dead themselves, experiences the passage of time differently than the rest of the world. Ierendal and the other 7 men enter directly behind the 2 captives, and they freely inspect the chamber. Eldarien notes their expressions. It seems that none of them have been here before. After a few moments, Ierendal turns to Eldarien and commands,
Open it.
I really don't know how.
But you have been here before, haven't you?
Ierendal asks.
What makes you think that?
Do not play games with me. There are a sufficient number of persons who know of your special treasure and where you discovered it.
I really don't know what you mean.
Eldarien says flatly.
Truly.
Ierendal growls. Eldarien stands his ground. He has only told a handful of persons throughout his life of his experience in the Barrow, and all of them he trusted deeply. As for the amulet, he has kept it a secret from all except those whom he has encountered since returning to Telmerion. Of course, it could have been seen any number of times, during changing, during training, or even simply slipping out from underneath his shirt during the ordinary affairs of life. But what would distinguish it greatly from any other pendant or memento? And even if its age and the runes upon it were noted by someone as marking it as a unique and ancient artifact, how would they trace it here?
I do not believe that those in whose command I act were mistaken.
Ierendal continues.
It has long been known that the captain from Falstead carries a token of his clan from ages long past. Only recently, however, did anyone expect it could be more than that.
To whose command do you refer?
Eldarien asks.
Lord Durin.
Dern.
Muses Ierendal.
I did say I represent him, and I do. But no, my orders come from higher.
Who?
You ask many questions, and I really do not understand why you expect I would answer you.
I will be dead soon anyway, so what harm is there in me knowing those responsible for what is happening to me?
Eldarien asks.
You are responsible for what is happening to you.
Ierendal smirks.
And that command indeed comes from Lord Dern, or at least part of it does. For the rest, you shall go to your grave without knowing.
Have it your way.
Eldarien sighs.
I will.
Ierendal now begins to pace slowly before the two men, looking at them with his hands locked behind his back. Eldarien notices that Rorlain is watching his every move, though he has remained silent throughout this entire exchange. Ierendal eventually speaks again.
Your little token only fell under the gaze and interest of certain important persons when their aims led right to your doorstep. And then a little, how shall we say, persuasion was necessary to get people to talk.
How could anyone talk if there is nothing for them to know?
Eldarien asks.
You mean, how could they talk if you tried to keep it a secret? Or rather, if you kept most things a secret?
Ierendal stops pacing now and looks directly at Eldarien.
Anyone will talk if you give them something that they want in exchange, whether that is the desire for gain or the release from suffering.
You are sick.
Me? I didn't do it. That was the work of others. I am just the one who gets the glorious role of finally unlocking these secrets.
Eldarien tolerates this conversation, surprised as he is that Ierendal is speaking so much of things it is obviously better for him and those he serves to keep confidential. Still, he cannot see a way out of this predicament, and it is only a matter of time before Ierendal becomes more aggressive. Suddenly, Rorlain speaks.
Why do you gloat as if you already have victory? You play the fool.
There are only two fools here.
Ierendal replies without hesitation.
And I am not one of them.
He does not answer Rorlain's question but pauses and then takes a step toward Eldarien.
I do grow tired of this, however. So if you will not give me what I desire, I shall take it by force.
With this, he begins to search Eldarien's clothing.
I know it must be on your person, since my men already checked your other belongings.
Eldarien is surprised that he had not noticed this. They must have rummaged through his pack quickly while they were preparing to depart from Falstead, after which they left it, and Rorlain's too, where they had set up camp. When he comes to Eldarien's neck, Ierendal laughs.
You wear it. Now that I did not expect.
Eldarien grits his teeth and bows his head, his heart sinking, though he had expected this moment to come, and Ierendal removes the amulet from his neck and holds it up in his hand.
Why not? It has no power.
Eldarien says.
No power, we will see.
Ierendal turns away and walks to the arched doorway of stone. Eldarien and Rorlain draw near to watch whatever he is about to attempt. He runs his hand along the seam between the two doors and stops at the center, the very space from which the beams of etched light are depicted as emanating. He runs his fingers, then along what appears to be a groove in the stone, and then inserts the amulet into the groove. It is a perfect fit. This is followed by a rumbling sound, and the doors swing outward of their own accord, scraping against the rough floor as they do so.
Well, that worked splendidly,
Ierendal says with a laugh. He turns back to Eldarien and Rorlain and pulls the amulet over his own head, letting it rest openly against his breast. Then to his men he says,
"Let us descend."
What about the prisoners, sir?
One of them asks.
"Bring them.
Replies Ierendal.
It will be impossible for them to escape if they are in the belly of the earth with us. And perhaps what they witness will instill a healthy fear into their naive and conceited hearts."
Witness!
The man says.
But
"Not everything. Of course, you idiot. I know what I'm doing."
With that, the company prepares to step through the open doorway and into what appears to be utter darkness. They draw from their packs torches, which were clearly prepared for this purpose, and set flame to them. Then, all together, the 10 persons walk forward into the barrow. They find themselves first in a narrow hallway of rough-cut stone, which begins to descend gradually under their feet. It would indeed be impossible to see anything were it not for the light of the torches. Eldarien and Rorlain, of course, cannot hold torches, but they are surrounded by light and walk forward, having no other choice with the rest of the men. Soon the hallway turns and leads them to the right, and then turns right again, as if progressing back in the direction from which it came, but this time lower, deeper. The slope of the path then gives way to stairs, descending steeply with walls to the right and the left. They follow the stairs, cautiously, because they are not easy to take, particularly in the patchy, flickering light of the torches, and come to level ground again. Here the walls fall away beside them, and they step into a large underground chamber, much larger than the entrance chamber, though completely dark, with no native sources of light whatsoever. Here, even with the torches, they can see neither walls nor ceiling. They stand only in a patch of dim light staring into blackness. The air is cool now, though not still. Rather a subtle breeze, more like a breath from the depths of the earth, stirs across their faces. The sensation creates an eerie sense of space, as if reaching out into darkness, hoping to find an object to stop one's fall, only to find nothingness.
"Search the chamber,"
Ierendal says, sending 2 men to the left, 2 men to the right, and 2 straight ahead, while remaining himself with the last man beside his captives. Seeing that they are now guarded by only 2 persons, Rorlain spares a meaning glance at Eldarien, who simply shakes his head. Even if they were to escape from the 2 men at their side and to make it blindly, in complete darkness, back to the entrance of the barrow, 2 more men stand guard there. Even if it was not Ierendal's intention, stationing guards at the entrance of the cave was one of the easiest ways to dissuade the captives' escape.
"Come!"
Ierendal says, pushing Rorlain forward, which forces Eldarien to stumble also.
"Let's continue on."
At the far end of the chamber, a distance which is impossible to gauge in the darkness, though it is so large that the torches of the other men have become hardly more than glowing specks in the distance, they stop.
"To me!"
Ierendal cries, and his voice echoes repeatedly against the walls and ceiling of the cave. They stand and wait while the others make their way to the call, which must be repeated, of course, to help them find their way, though it seems apparent to both captives that all of this is proceeding according to a preordained plan.
"What have we found?"
Ierendal asks when everyone is together.
Nothing.
One replies.
it is the same for us.
"We found a doorway."
Enters a man from the last group who had proceeded to the back of the chamber where they are now standing.
It looks then like the barrow has not yet begun,
says Ierendal.
This must be some kind of antechamber or gathering space. I don't quite understand the reason for its size.
He turns to Eldarien.
Do you know what this room is for? And more importantly, what awaits us as we continue?
I have never been here before.
Eldarien replies softly.
You may forfeit the lies.
Ierendal answers.
We all know that you have been here.
No, I have never been in this part of the cave. I never entered through the main entrance, nor did I know how to unseal the arched doorway.
How then did you get in?
Ierendal says, his eyes glistening in the torchlight as he looks intently at Eldarien.
I fell.
You fell?
Yes, through the sinkhole.
What sinkhole?
The one around which we walked to the entrance of the cave.
Oh.
Eldarien cannot tell if Ierendal believes him or not.
Fine.
He continues after a long moment of silence and then turns to one of his companions.
Gerdrick, you lead the way. Prisoners, follow along behind us. Malrune and Killen, guard the prisoners.
And so they proceed, finding again the doorway, quite small for being the sole exit from such a massive chamber, and passing through it into another tunnel. This one is short, only 50 yards or so, and soon they find themselves walking into a chamber that seems radiantly bright in comparison with the pitch blackness from which they have come. Some raise their hands to shield their eyes from the light, but soon they all adjust and realize that the chamber is actually only bathed in a dim half-light, with rays of dappled sun streaming in from a hole in the ceiling high above them. Directly under the shaft in the ceiling is a pool of water, whose face is still and unmoving, though it glistens in the places where light falls upon it.
Your sinkhole?
Ierendal asks.
Yes.
Replies Eldarien, memories rushing upon him once again. He sees no reason to hide it, so he adds,
The burial places are only a bit further on at the other end of the chamber.
He then asks, with little expectation, but with the knowledge that Ierendal loves the sound of his own voice.
What have you come here to do?
Ierendal turns and anger again flashes in his eyes.
I have come to find the means to destroy my enemies and the enemies of the Empire. What do you think?
Eldarien doesn't know why he says this, and is at a loss as to the import of his words. Turning away, Ierendal then speaks to all.
Let us waste no further time.
As they walk, Eldarien notices that Rorlain seems restless, almost jittery, and whispers to him.
Are you afraid?
Rorlain turns his head and looks at his friend and offers him again a gaze full of meaning, flicking his eyes for a moment as if to gesture to his own hands tied behind his back. Eldarien understands, though he finds it incredible. Somehow it seems Rorlain has managed to undo the ropes binding his wrists. After Eldarien nods quickly, both men turn their gaze forward again and continue to the edge of the chamber, to the passage that Eldarien had taken the last time he was here. The company stops and inspects the runes etched over the entrance.
What does it say?
One man asks.
How would I know?
Ierendal replies, but is cut off by Eldarien's quiet voice in a chant-like tone.
Among the shadows lie the many fallen under blade of foe, or by illness smitten or age's plight, awaiting day's coming, dispelling night.
All turn to look at him, faces marked by surprise, some perhaps even by fear. Killen says,
Descendant indeed of the mighty clan of old. Do you people of the Galaptea still live lost in ages past?
We are all of us descendants of ancient clans,
is Eldarien's terse reply, and with that they proceed. As soon as they come among the tombs, the familiar sense of peace that Eldarien had known last time he was here returns. No one else indicates that they feel it. Rather, to his anger and disgust, the members of the company find no qualms with digging among the bones of the dead for ancient treasures, or even perhaps out of mere curiosity. Clenching his jaw, he tries to turn away, but the words come out of his mouth.
Are you looking for something?
Oh?
Ierendal glances at him.
No. Or rather, not something that can be found among the corpses of ancient men.
Eldarien shakes his head and tries to focus on the light of the ever-burning candles while they continue forward, clinging to the subtlest hint of peace that has lingered underneath his anger and frustration.
Are these never extinguished?
He hears Godric say ahead of him.
The candles?
Replies another man.
It is an old legend that they do not, but maybe our hosts have instead lit them just for us.
Hosts?
Thinks Eldarien.
Let's split up.
Ierendal says, as they proceed deep enough into the tunnel that it begins to branch off into others of similar shape and size, with candles also flickering in the distance within them.
Are you sure that's a good idea, Lord Deputy?
Malrún asks, standing close to Eldarien's side. This is the first time that Eldarien tangibly feels the man's fear, and indeed, through this, he becomes aware of the fear of all the men. But why are they afraid? They are only in an ancient cave filled with the tombs of the dead.
I do,
replies Ierendal.
They must be here somewhere, and we need to find them. Just remember what you are to say.
They?
Rolain asks thoughtlessly.
That is none of your business,
says Ierendal. Then he turns back to Malrún and says,
Actually, bring the prisoners ahead of us into the deepest tunnel.
He pauses, and his eyes betray malicious intent.
I really loathe the trip to Ristfand. If something were to happen to them here, then of course it would be unfortunate, but convenient for all involved.
Yes, Lord Deputy.
Malrún says softly, his voice strained.
Kill and go with him.
As you wish.
The four men proceed along a side passage among the slumbering bodies of the dead for a good 10 minutes. As they walk, Eldarien senses something else mingling among the peace and militating against it, as if it seeks to squeeze it out and replace it. The feeling is fear. It is not a specified fear, however, like the fear of imminent death, which both he and Rolain are expecting but hoping to avoid. It is rather like fear itself, a constriction of the heart, a dulling of the mind, which threatens even to suffocate and paralyze the body. As he tries to navigate this sense, he becomes aware that the others feel it too, or rather, he becomes aware that it saturates the air around them, like an invisible fume poisoning the atmosphere.
I think we should go back.
Malrún says. He turns and looks imploringly at Killen, and then his gaze falls upon Eldarien. The latter sees the terror in his eyes, as if he is on the verge of either breaking into tears or into flight. And then Eldarien notices for the first time that the bundle carrying his and Rolain's weapons is tied to Malrún's back, certainly a mistake on Ierendal's part. He knows that Rolain is aware of it too, and he is afraid of what he will do in an attempt to get the weapons.
Malrún,
Eldarien begins, his voice soft.
Could you please let us go free? I assure you that we will do no harm to you. Indeed, if I can, I will help you back to the entrance of the cave.
He sees confusion mingle with the fear in Malrún's eyes. He is not thinking clearly and cannot make sense of Eldarien's words or discern his intent in speaking them.
I wish nothing but to aid both the people of Telmerion and the Empire, insofar as both may be sought in truth.
Eldarien continues.
Surely you wish for the same, do you not? You are from Telmerion like the rest of us, so why punish a man who is your brother?
Don't listen to him.
Killen growls.
He's trying to take advantage of whatever it is in this place.
His voice grows thick with anxiety as he tries to force the words out of his mouth.
I assure you we wish only well.
Rolain adds, and Eldarien is surprised to hear fear in his voice too, though he is clearly doing his best to shrug it off. As he stands here in the suffocating atmosphere, Eldarien cannot help recalling the sense of darkness and dread that he had felt upon coming to the abode of the Eöten. Does a similar darkness now reside here? Before he can think any further, however, he hears a voice coming from further down the passage, not the way from whence they have come, but ahead of them. He tries to make out what is spoken, but it is not words, not an intelligent language of any kind, but a form of intermingled growling, garbled with guttural noises and raspy breathing. All four men unconsciously take a step back. The source of the voice draws near with a sound of shuffling footsteps, first dimly visible among the vigil candles, and then unveiled fully as it steps into the torchlight. It is not human, or at least not a living human. In the form of a man, it stands on two legs, arms hanging limply at its side and chest heaving as if breathing laboriously. But its flesh is as though desiccated, rotted away from muscle and bone. Hollow cheekbones protrude under empty eye sockets, from which nonetheless a keen gaze looks at them. The gaze feels as though being looked at by pure darkness itself, pierced by an abyss of anguish, evil and despair, which pierces the very soul.
Who are you?
Cries Killen, drawing his sword and holding it before him.
What do you want with us?
The creature answers in the same guttural noises and takes a step forward. To the men's surprise and fright, other similar figures now appear behind it, and their voices meld together almost like a chorus of throaty chanting, or like 5 or 10 men all together, retching and vomiting out their meal at the same time. The combination of the sight, the sound, and the atmosphere of fear and despair engulfs the four men, and they turn to flee. Rawlane releases his bonds, hiding his freedom no longer, and bends over and cuts the rope joining their legs. Where he found the knife, Eldarien does not know. Then he rises up and grabs Eldarien by the arm.
"Let's go,"
he cries. Without even glancing at the two now separated captives, Malrún and Killen fly past them and run ahead down the passage. But Eldarien and Rawlane follow close behind. Then the worst happens. Before they come to the end of the passage, where it joins again with the main tunnel, they find themselves face to face with more of the dead yet living creatures. They are trapped. The two guards, after only a moment's hesitation, attack the beasts, and the hallway is filled with the sickening sound of metal cutting through their rotted flesh. At this moment, Rawlane rushes behind Eldarien and in a matter of seconds looses the bonds from his hands. Then a human cry echoes through the tunnel, and Killen falls to the ground, only to have 3 of the creatures leap on top of him, poised as if to devour him. Malrún backs away from the creatures, swinging wildly, and runs straight into Eldarien, who loses his balance and almost falls down. Instinctively, he reaches out his hand, grasping for something to stop his fall, and his fingers close around the bundle of weapons on Malrún's back. Glancing over his shoulder, Malrún simply cries,
"Take them! I don't care! Just help me!"
Soon, Eldarien has his sword in his hands and its scabbard again over his shoulder, while Rawlane slips his axe in his belt and then knocks an arrow on his bow, loosing it into the swarming mass of bodies assaulting them. And then another, and another. Eldarien tries to charge forward, to push back the beasts that are now swarming Malrún and threatening to drag him down, but as he does so, he feels a claw-like grip on his own shoulder. Turning, he realizes that the beasts have caught up with them from the other end of the tunnel. He swirls his body around and, in a fluid movement, hews the arm from the creature's body, and it falls to the ground limply. To his astonishment, upon contact with the creature's flesh, the blade of the Lightbringer again glows with bluish light, and the severed arm dissolves into nothingness. Lunging forward, Eldarien cuts deep into the creature's chest, and with the fatal blow, its entire body collapses like dust, as though it passes through centuries of decay within a matter of seconds. Seeing this, the other creatures, on both sides of the men, pause and begin to howl in voices like wolves, or like hawks, or rather, like something that the men have never heard before but which fills them with terror, as does every gesture, sound, and action of these mysterious creatures. Eldarien raises the Lightbringer in the air and cries out,
"In the name of the light I banish you. Flee from us, you fell creatures.
They do not immediately respond, but look startled, confused, almost as if they were walking comfortably through the darkness, only to be blinded by a brilliant light that they did not expect, and which hinders their approach.
I said, depart from us.
Eldarien yells again. With this, he leaps forward toward the main tunnel, cutting down the creatures as he moves. With cries of intermingled fear, hope, and desire, Malrun and Rorlane join him, rushing forward to his side. It is only a matter of moments until they have broken through the crowd of beasts and come into the main tunnel. Turning back and raising his sword, expecting a fight, Eldarien is surprised to find that the remaining creatures slink back into the darkness of the passage and disappear. Malrun collapses on the ground, breathing heavily and weeping. Eldarien kneels down beside him. His forehead is bleeding slightly, and his long blonde hair hanging down over his face is stained red in places.
Are you gravely hurt?
He asks.
It is nothing serious.
Malrun answers in the midst of his tears.
Nothing but hands and teeth. How do they—
But his voice trails off into silence.
It is all right now.
Eldarien tries to assure him.
For they are chasing us no longer.
We need to get out of here.
Rorlane says at his side, looking down the passage that leads to the chamber of water into which Eldarien had fallen.
Yes, but not that way.
Eldarien says, rising to his feet and helping Malrun to stand.
There is an exit not far from here, through the great hall of the king.
Then let us go. There is no time to lose,
Whispers Rorlane, his axe clutched tightly in his hand. Then turning to Eldarien, he says,
Wait, where is your bow?
Eldarien sighs, turning to Malrun.
It is still in the bundle.
Take it.
Breathes the latter.
I am sorry for all that has happened to you.
Malrun.
The man pulls the bundle off his back and gives the bow and the quiver full of arrows back to his previous captive.
Thank you, let us go.
Eldarien says, placing his hand upon Malrun's trembling shoulder for a moment. They do not walk now, but run down the narrow passageway at full speed, afraid that the confusion of the creatures will fade, or that they will rediscover their original boldness. But they are halted at the doorway to the great chamber by the echoing voice of Ierendal.
I beseech you, great and ancient king, to aid us in the cause that we have chosen.
Looking into the chamber, Eldarien sees that Ierendal stands, alone now, with the corpses of his men scattered around him, before one of the creatures from which they had just fled, though this one is larger, certainly not simply the living corpse of a man. It stands a good 2 or 3 heads taller than Ierendal, and looks down upon him with the same eyes of darkness, sockets from which horror and wretchedness gaze.
Why do you speak to me in such words?
The creature, to their astonishment, replies, though in the same guttural voice.
I address you on behalf of our great emperor, Merindas IV, lord and ruler of all lands that are under the sun and above the earth.
Ierendal replies. His voice is not haughty now, but strained, touched by the same fear that has now permeated the entire barrow. But he does not give in to it, and continues to speak.
My lord wishes to revive your reign among the people of Telmerion, since none of the people of this land, lost and weak as they are, can justly rule themselves. He wishes—
Ierendal finds it important to add,
only for the good of the people of this continent.
You misunderstand me,
replies the creature of darkness.
Why do you address me as the ancient king?
You stand here upon his very burial place. Surely it is you.
Ierendal answers, stuttering. The creature then laughs a terrible laugh, devoid of all mirth. Ierendal has found his match in mockery.
I am no ruler of men,
it says after its throaty cackle has died away.
but I understand the things that are said between your words, where you are unwilling to speak. And I have already sought counsel with the greatest of our order, and I have awaited your arrival, knowing that you would come. So return to your petty emperor and tell him that we are willing to use him and his aspirations for as long as it serves our purposes. Or rather,
The creature laughs again.
tell him the words he wishes to hear. We will march with you to whatever place you desire.
Very well, I thank you. We shall soon bring the might of the Empire, and your might, great one, to the city of Ristfand.
Irilof concludes softly. With this, he steps away from the creature and looks about the hall, clearly searching for the way out. Seeing it, he scurries away like a rat freed from a trap, and is gone.
Should we go after him?
Rorlane asks in a whisper at Eldarien's side.
How?
Malrún asks.
You have a good point. Should we go back the way we came?
I wonder if we could...
Eldarien begins.
You don't think you can fight that beast, do you?
Says Malrún, interrupting him.
I don't know, but I do sense a power in it far greater than I have felt in any of the others.
Eldarien pauses and thinks for a moment and then nods.
It would be better to get out of here safely. Risking our lives would be worse than anything else right now. We need to go warn others about what we have witnessed today.